The following program is a Creative Magic Network production. Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome. Come on in, sit down, relax, put your earbuds on. Maybe you're in the gym, maybe you're walking down the street, maybe you're doing dishes, maybe you're doing laundry, whatever you're doing. Welcome to the Frederick Bai Show, and this radio podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts, we step into the unknown. It is an inspirational, magical, intuitive radio podcast as we chat with charismatic enigmas from around the globe. That's right, musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, everything in between. I am Frederick Bai, the Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey. Hey, in this place, sky is the limit and space is the place. I am your favorite French Canucker, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects: creativity, poetry, fiction, art. This is it. I love that. I'm an artist at heart. I know that. And today we're going to talk with Anne Chiappetta. Is that how you pronounce your name, Anne? I'm sorry.
I love the way you pronounce my name.
Okay, but it's not the right way. What's the last name? How do you spell it? How do you spell your last name?
My last name is Chiappetta.
And you pronounce it?
And it's Chiappetta.
Okay, and Chiappetta. Okay.
Yeah.
She's the author of Upwelling. In this collection of 23 of her short, accessible poems from several decades, and explores an enormous range of emotions and topics such as disturbing dream, mysteries, and even eroticism. You can find her at www.thought-wheel.com. So welcome to the show, Anne.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So, it's a very exciting time for you because it's your first book, right? If
yes.
I'm not mistaken. And, you received your first royalty check. You get criticism, it's exciting. It's your work, and people read your work, and people are into it. But first, let's start at the beginning, because you have an interesting story. Give us an idea here of your background a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm born and raised in New York, or New York, as we say, in a little town.
Isn't that like the New York accent?
Yeah, New York. Dog, walk the dog. Yeah. And I was born in Westchester County, which is little like 30 miles above this New York City. Even though I am visually impaired now, I consider myself a blind person, or a person who is blind. I wasn't growing up, so I had vision when I was growing up. So that's part of my history. I think that's part of what makes me who I am. I've always been writing since I was a little girl. I was always daydreaming. Oh, you're always daydreaming. What do you're not paying attention to anything. I was always creating stories in my head. Loved animals. So at some point in my life, I moved to California with my mom, and I got the California lifestyle for a while, came back to New York, settled down, got married, and I started losing my vision. And my life changed dramatically since then. But I had always felt that writing and being creative was a way for me to stay grounded and to express myself at those times where I felt no one else knew or understand what I was feeling or going through.
See, this is fascinating. I always like people with unique stories, unique, journeys, and yours is definitely unique. All right. So first of all, let's start. You said you always wrote. What did you write when you were?
When I was a little girl, I wrote stories.
Yeah.
Just little things. I always had a diary and a journal, especially during those times that were very, very dark in my life. I relied on my journals for many things, including reading my journals back to myself after I had gone through those dark times and saying, wow, look how far I've come. So I use them as not just as a means of expression or, or being able to get out of my thoughts in my head and get them out on paper, but also to show myself that I've, gone beyond the dark times. So, and then I started writing in high school, mostly poetry. I did some acting. I like to draw too, but when I started losing my vision, I couldn't do that anymore, really. So then I started doing more writing because that was the more concrete way I could express myself better. So,
right. And were you a reader?
Avid reader. Read since the age of 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what kind of books? Who would be your most your favorite authors?
Oh, favorite authors. Contemporary authors. I like Stephen King. Mm-hmm. I like John Irving. I like Alice Munro. I think Alice Munro is probably the person I would like to emulate the most in my writing. Her style and the way she characterizes things. Love her work.
What's her style? She's
very the way she sets her times and her locations and her people and how they react to one another. She says just enough for you to, kind of think about that. It's very, evocative. So when you finish one of her stories or one of her books, you're always thinking about it. Mm-hmm. You always go back to it in your head. And that's kind of what I would like people to do about my writing. So, think about that poem they read 6 months ago and say, wow, let me go back to that and read it again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that kind of power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Stephen King? What books from Stephen King did you read?
Oh, everything.
I like everything, really.
The man just, whenever I think he's, written himself out, he comes up with something else.
Yeah.
He's extremely prolific, and that's amazing.
Do you plan on writing novels?
I've written many, many different things.
But publishing novels.
Yes, I have the reason why I did the poetry first was to see how the landscape would be for me, mm-hmm. whether I could handle it, mentally, whether I could handle it, just in terms of, because I work full time, how much time that would be, a strain for me personally. So now that I know what it's like, I'm planning my next book, and that's going to be about my life as a blind person and then getting guide dogs.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What kind of kid were you? Because I picture you, were you a kid in her own little world, or because you said you were a dreamer, a daydreamer? Yeah. Were you maybe also a troublemaker? Like, what kind of kid were you? Were you shy, or were you out there, outgoing?
Oh, my sister said that that I love to dance and sing. I was very curious. I was very independent. But then after my parents divorced when I was young, so for a time after that, I was very shy and introverted. But then that was temporary, and I got out of it, and I did the same things all. So like in 7th grade, I played somebody in a Shakespearean play, so I wasn't so shy anymore. But mm-hmm. Yeah, so I loved to get into things. Like if my dad was doing something in the shop, I had to watch him, and I had to understand and hands on, and how do you do that? And I want to know, I was very curious.
Mm-hmm. And did you grow up in a household of creatives?
Actually, yes. It's so funny you mentioned that. My older sister, Cheryl, she's the one that did the photography on my book. She's an amateur photographer and a musician who can play anything. You give her an instrument, and in 10 minutes she can play it. She's amazing. My sister Lori is also a writer. My mother was a writer of sorts and a lover of poetry. And my dad, he was very creative with his hands. He was a carpenter, and he loved to create things, out of wood, and, he loved nature. And so, I would say we were all pretty much grounded in that creativity piece.
And, it's always fascinating to me knowing about the period in our lives when you get to be 19 and it's time to make a career decision. Oftentimes parents push their kids to go to college, become a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. And when you tell them, hey, if you tell them I want to be a writer, oof, kid, you better, it's not the career of their choice. Let's put it that way. Were you, what was the mindset of the adults around you when it came to a career in creativity back then?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I was born in 1964, so I was growing up in the 70s, and it was just starting to turn that women could go to college and have careers. And it even though I came from a blue collar family, I grew up, in a house, with my grandparents and my parents, and we lived in a little town and all of that. But some of the girls in our neighborhood were going to college, so that was always my hope. I was brought up with that you can be anything you want kind of hope. My mom was very, very adamant about that. My dad, not so much, but my mom, yes. So it didn't turn out that I went to college until much later in life, but I did do it, and so did my sisters. We're all college graduates.
Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids.
Okay.
My daughter is here with us, and my son lives in Georgia.
Okay. And if when they do turn 19, maybe they are or not, but what would you tell them if they said, "Hey, Mom, I want to be a writer," or instead of being an engineer?
Be ready to work
or an artist.
Second job.
I'm sorry?
Be ready to work a second job.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, we're here with Anne Chiappetta. She's the author of Upwelling, in this collection of 23 of her short, accessible poems from several decades, and explores an enormous range of emotions and topics, including disturbing dream, mysteries, and eroticism. You can find her at thoughtwheel.com. That's thought-wheel.com. And guys, right before continuing this conversation, if you have a passion, something that fuels your curiosity, well, on top of getting fascinating interviews such as this one straight to your inbox, when you subscribe to our free Creative Magic community, you will get super cool exclusive gifts in return, such as the ebook Happiness Quotes by the ambassador of happiness herself, Maura Sweeney, one of our hosts, and also an exclusive conversation with 2 of my favorite people, Alex Okoroji and the blind blogger Max Ivy, as we talk about the influence of friends and college education on our lives, the competitiveness in a crowded field, the importance of business and financial education in arts and entrepreneurship, and more. And also, Alex has a special gift for you inside. She has a book, so I promise you will get inspired and entertained. Subscribe for free at frederickby.com. Frederick with a C, by like bye-bye.com. Okay, Anne, let's talk a little bit about your book. So, first debut novel, how did it come about?
Well, I've always wanted to do it. Like I said, I've been writing for a long time. I have many, many poems. It wasn't until my mom was diagnosed with lymphoma last year that I decided, well, you never know. Life is something that is just the way it is, and you could be here, for 20 more years, or you could not be here for 20 days. So while Mom was going through her cancer and going through her own way, she would call me and ask questions. They were pretty hard to answer sometimes. And so we were going through this whole anticipated grief process.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean they were hard to answer? Like,
geez. I didn't want to answer the questions about, she would ask, how are you? What are you going to do?
Okay.
I'm not here, and it was It was,
okay, I get it.
yeah. So I started writing this poem. It's the last poem in the book. It's called Chasing Grief. And it was about watching my mother die. And after I wrote that poem, I said to myself, I think I'm ready. I'm ready for people to read my thoughts. I'm ready for people to understand who I am. I mean, I can't go through anything more difficult than that. So, and that's what got me to put everything together and start the process. And I dedicated it to my mom, Mary, and that's it. It just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would like to know. Okay, your mom is dying, and then you became blind. You went from being able to see to being blind to being a writer. First, how did you deal with that transition when you became blind? And what impact did it have on you? And what impact, if any, on your creativity and your purpose in life,
Yeah. Well, I didn't get diagnosed with my eye condition. It's called retinitis pigmentosa. I didn't get diagnosed with it till I was 28. And my son had just turned 1, and I was getting ready to go back to work, and I was a designer of acrylic furniture. And I couldn't see the line drawings anymore. I couldn't see the computer anymore. And that was very scary. So about a month after all these tests that they gave me, they told me I had retinitis pigmentosa. It has no cure, and they can't tell me how long it will take for me to go completely blind, but that I will go completely blind one day.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember sitting at in the office and the ophthalmologist telling me this, and I didn't know what to say or what to do or what to feel or how to act. I was lost.
Mm-hmm.
I was totally lost. But my ophthalmologist, he was probably one of the angels in disguise, and he got me to our blindness services for the state, and I started my rehabilitation process to learn how to live as a blind person. And I wasn't completely blind. I had an eye disease that would eventually take my vision in stages, but they couldn't tell me what stages that would be. So my vision would stabilize for a while, and then 6 months later it would die again. And then I would wake up one day and I would have less vision. And then I would go maybe a year, and then suddenly I would wake up one day and I would have less vision. And this happened for years and years and years. So I had to learn how to mentally prepare myself for all of this back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about 3 years of weekly mental health therapy to really get me past the grief and the loss and the depression. And also at this time, it was during the Gulf War. My husband was a veteran, and we were waiting for him to be called up to go to Kuwait. So that was also on my mind as well. Not only was I going blind, but I'm going to, my husband's going to be, so thankfully he didn't go to Kuwait. He only went to Europe, but he did go, and he went for 8 months. So, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and what kept you going? Is it your faith? Is it your children? Is it, what kept you going?
My faith, my children, my family. I had, my family was always there whenever I needed them for something. And my husband, he stuck with me through everything. I mean, imagine being, getting married and having your first child, and then a year later being told your wife's going to go blind. I mean, he stuck with me, and 26 years later, we're still together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that kept me going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it have an impact on your purpose, in life? Like, okay, what's my future is going to be like? Like what? I'm pretty sure you asked that question, but how do you see the future? Or do you take it one day at a time? What is it?
Oh, well, now I know to take it one day at a time, but then I didn't really. I guess I did take it one day at a time, because I did a little bit at a time, and slowly I got more and more independent. I learned how to listen instead of read with my eyes. Learned how to listen with my ears. That took a long time because you have to switch your brain over. I learned how to travel with a white cane. I learned how to do all my housework and stuff without the benefit of my sight, and cooking and cleaning and all of that. Take care of my kids. Funny things that I didn't want to do at the time, but I did because of my safety for my kids. I had to put my daughter on a leash. Well, because she was young and precocious, and she would just take off on me. So no, you have to stay with me. Stuff like that. And now that I think about it, I did the best thing I could at the time. And my kids, they didn't care. It didn't affect them in the least. So I went back to school. I concentrated on my education, and I took as many writing classes as I could. At first, I thought I was going to get my MFA, Master in Fine Arts, but then I realized that I could probably get a better job in the area of mental health and psychology, so I went that direction. And in 2007, I graduated with my master's degree in family therapy.
Wow.
And I got a job. I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs in a mental health counseling office, and I help veterans and their families.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you moved on and you became a writer. You wrote Upwelling. How do you write a writer when you're blind?
I love technology. I do know some Braille. I was, like my training, I do know Braille. I know enough to read elevator buttons and signs on the women's room door and things like that. But I'm not a proficient Braille reader, only because I think I don't have the time to study it. It's like studying another language, so maybe when I retire, I'll study more Braille. But so my technology is my connection to the world. My text-to-speech software, my iPhone, my computer at work. I really, if I didn't lose my vision, I probably would be somebody who programmed computers, because that's how much I'm interested in them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely something that helped me through all of that. And to this day, that's how I write. I write on my computer, and I use, Microsoft Word, and I also have people that I know who have vision, who are my editors, and people I depend on to help me. Is as much as I'm independent, I'm also interdependent as well,
Right. All right. So, in your book, Upwelling, okay, let's talk about your first royalty check for $20.79. Man, how was it? How did you wrote that you were thrilled?
I was.
Of course.
I still am. That's like getting your first dollar from your first sale of your first, if you're a salesperson getting your first dollar. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's a sense of pride and accomplishment. It's sending up a blessing to my mom because she knew I could do it. It is all of that work and all of that emotion that goes into those poems that $20 represents. That's my phone. Sorry. And it's thrilling. I mean, and if I just keep getting $20, that's fine. 'Cause for me, it's not about the money. It's about other people reading my work and finding something transformative, and a connection and connecting with people. So
right.
It's about.
You write that you cannot read without some of the poems. You still cannot read without becoming emotional.
Yes.
And if you can't read aloud due to becoming verklempt.
Yes.
Talk to us a bit about that.
Well, the poem about my mom chasing grief. Mm-hmm. That's one of them. Verona, my first guide dog. Very difficult to get through that one because that was a very transformative time in my life. And I'll write more about that in my next book. Can you repeat the last because you broke a little bit? I'll write more about Verona in my next book.
What's your dog?
Yeah, well, she's retired now. I'm on to my second guide dog. So,
Okay.
I never thought that I would ever be the kind of person who would lose their vision and then one day have a guide dog. I saw guide dogs on the street working with people, and I would say, wow, that's amazing. Maybe I can train those dogs to do that one day. I never thought I would be the person on the end of that handle.
Yeah.
And I was, and I am.
But man, these dogs seem so nice. Like, it's crazy. No, but like when you see a blind person with a dog, it's like the dog, like I'm usually afraid of dogs, but I'm not afraid of dogs with blind people, you know?
Yes.
It's how are these dogs? Are they really your best friend? Like, what's your relationship with these dogs?
Well, you can go to the www.dworkin.com/Ann Chiappetta and read one of the poems about Verona. It's on that page. But I will say that these dogs are your best friend. They kind of, they're more than that. When you work with your guide dog and you develop a bond and that level of trust with them, because they're your eyes, they're making decisions to keep both of you safe. Mm-hmm. Once that happens, and once that bond, occurs and keeps going, you don't have to talk to each other. You just know what each other does.
Wow.
And it's just remarkable to me that I was provided that kind of animal, that magnificent creature to help me for free, and then, now I'm on my second dog, and he's just as remarkable in his own way. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Not right now that your poems are being read, and a lot of people would like to be poets and to publish their first book. And how do you take criticism? Because not everybody, unfortunately, you can't please everybody. And I know you said earlier, it's kind of a test how you're going to take criticism. What's the result?
Well, it's funny you said that, because when somebody says, I was in a writer's group for a long, 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 long time before I even decided to put my poetry together in a book. And, we all criticized each other, but in a good way. And whenever we would laugh, this is one of the things we would say to each other. If somebody says, well, that was nice. That was kind of like saying, that was not so good. But so when someone says, oh, your poems were very nice, I know that meant that it didn't really
resonate.
Yeah. So when someone says, I read that poem and it made me feel so sad, or that poem, about you and your husband, that was really, really neat. And what a great thing to do. Or, so when somebody just says that was very nice, maybe they didn't really get a kick out of the stuff. So,
right.
Yeah. And how I feel about that, it's okay. Like you said, you're not going to please everybody, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about a few of the poems. You have one poem you talk about the title is How to Deal with Rejection. How did you come up with that?
That was from, one of those editors that said thank you, but no thanks, that your poems were nice.
Oh.
And I knew, nice, but not for us. That's what that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Nobody likes to be rejected. And I think the world of writing is a world in many ways of rejection, especially if we want to get published by a publishing house. Are you ready for that, you think?
I would love to have a publishing house, pick me up and say, yes, we would love to have you do another collection. This time we want it to be, not 23 poems, but 50 poems. I could do that. I'm ready to do that. And that's what I might do on my own. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. 'Cause I'm in it more for, my own sense of self, and accomplishment than I am for, anything else. I mean, would I like to be on the New York, Times bestseller list? Yes, I would love to. Would I love to be able to walk in and see my book, at the Barnes and Noble and the booksellers? Of course I would. If that happens, that's great. If it doesn't happen, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Once again, we're here with Ann Chiappetta. She's the author of Upwelling, a collection of 23 of her short, accessible poems from several decades. She explores an enormous range of emotions and topics, including disturbing dream, mysteries, and eroticism. You can find her at thought-will.com. And guys, right before continuing this conversation, if you are an Amazon shopper, when you use our Amazon link at frederickby.com, Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show and it helps cover production costs. No additional cost to you, or hidden fees. No nothing. So if you like what you hear, you can help by going over to frederickby.com, Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com, and click the Amazon link in the sidebar for all your online shopping. It is really that simple, and you can even bookmark it to find it easier. Okay, the life of a writer is a life of uncertainty. It's a life, in my opinion, the creative life in general. It's a life of entrepreneurship. Would you agree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with uncertainty? Because oftentimes, the world of entrepreneurship, the world of creativity is you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from, or you don't know what's going to happen next. You kind of roll with the punches, as we say. How do you deal with uncertainty? How do you remain calm in uncertainty?
That is a good question. In terms of my writing, there are times where, things do get a little bit overwhelming, especially when you have deadlines to meet, or when you're editing other people's work and you have to communicate with them and they might not be receptive to your changes, things like that. So I think just keeping in mind that, you can only do what you can do. And, keeping in mind also, to be when you're talking about other people's writing, when you're an editor, which I do, a fair amount of editing for other people. And it's just, be kind but firm and open, to them and, validate them. But usually people come around and say, yeah, maybe you were right about that change and, it's okay, you can do it. So that part of it is kind of, it's difficult to get used to doing. And then, of course, the rejection. If someone says, no, I don't like that, or, that's not what we're looking for. I've had that as well. But I've also had many, many, many times where it's been very validating and successful. So I think it balances out in the end. It does. And
how do you deal with the being a writer is a lonely job. You have to be by yourself. Some writers, a lot of writers can be writing while their husband or their wives is driving or something, or in a cafe. But how do you deal with the loneliness associated with your creative work?
Well, first of all, I since I work full time, I have very limited time to actually be alone and write. So I make sure I dedicate time, and I dedicate myself to writing every day, even if it's just a little bit. So that's how I honor my writer within. The other thing is I don't allow myself to do too much of the alone time thing. If, for instance, if I'm, I have a block of time to myself, say I have 2 hours this afternoon to write, I make sure that I congratulate myself with the success of my writing or whatever I've produced. I take a walk with my dogs. I talk to my husband. I make sure I interact, or do something else besides just, besides write. That, it sounds silly, but that helps me write better and be more productive in those short blocks of time that I have.
And do you have, what is your creative process? Are you the type of person who can write in public?
Well, well, thanks to technology and really great earbuds, I could probably write anywhere. Give me a keyboard and an earbuds, and I could probably do that. But I prefer writing in the privacy of my home. I have an office. I prefer my dogs in the room with me, so I can listen to them snore while I write, because Labradors snore. I sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't. And I like to be comfortable. I like to know that I can be in my pajamas or not. And sometimes it's the quiet that really gives me probably the most productivity.
Are you the type of person who meditates?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And how does it help you with your creativity?
It helps me by connecting with my thoughts better, so I can get to my thoughts and get them out onto the computer screen. Is one of my biggest struggles when I first began learning how to write was writer's block and not being able to write anything. Having all those thoughts jumbled up in my head and then not being able to get them out on paper. So that takes time and practice. And then once time and practice, once you have that down and you can just sit down and you can write, then it's how to write well as best as you can the first time, and then go back. So that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice.
Yeah. Do you have a particular ritual? That's something that you do every time before you start writing?
I do. I usually get my coffee or my drink or my bottle of water. I make sure that that I have everything that I need before I sit down. And sometimes, well, most of the time I'll go back to something I've written a few days before and I review it, and then I get to the part that I need to start on. So that to me is important because it grounds me back in the train of thought that I need to be, because I work on so many different things. I mean, I could be working on something for a newsletter, which is very, we did this, we did that, and this happened and that happened. Or I could be back in my my guide dog biography, where I need to be in what was I feeling then, and how would I describe that feeling? What was I smelling then? What was I, what was, the weather like? And, so it really helps to go back and review and get you back into that moment.
Yeah, right. What is the number one habit that fuels your creative life?
Writing. In
Okay.
order to be a good writer, you have to write.
Yeah.
And reading as well. But, in order to be a good writer, you need to write.
Mm-hmm. Are you spiritual, religious? Do you believe in something higher?
I do. Yes.
Okay. And how so? Like, are you a Christian? Or are you a Buddhist? Or not? Or you're a nameless spiritual person? No titleless.
I was born and raised a Catholic. I've done all of my everything in the Catholic Church, all the way up to being married. My communion and a confirmation and all of that. Baptized both my kids. However, that said, I think I'm more of a spiritually based person. I am open to all religions. I love reading about other religions. I love knowing how other countries and groups and ethnicities feel about spirituality and what that means to them and how that is meaningful in their lives. I've always been interested in that.
Mm-hmm. What kind of spiritual tradition inspires you a lot, or that you were surprised with, attracted to?
Well, when I was being counseled through my blindness, the gentleman that counseled me actually studied with the Dalai Lama at the time. that he was in college. So he introduced me to a lot of Ayurvedic medicine, chakra work, and grounding and meditation. And to this day, I still do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating. Fascinating. What inspires you to create? Is it nature, animals? Okay, you told me writing, but is there something that, because for me, I love to walk in nature, just something there, animals too, what inspires you to create? Is there a particular place or thing except writing?
Well, what inspires me, I think, the most is the human condition, and animals too, and to a certain degree, but wanting to know about how other people think or feel, or how I feel about something that I was exposed to, or how something affected change. What that trend, what that change is. Just going back to that poem about my mom chasing grief. It starts out where the shepherd and the shepherd's dog is the shepherd. I'm actually the dog, and I'm mad and I'm upset and I'm angry and I don't want to lose my sheep, and I don't want to say goodbye. I don't want there to be an end. And then at the end, I'm accepting of it. The dog actually is accepting of it because the dog has gone through a transitionary period in their thoughts. And so I think that trying to capture, all the things that make us human, I think that's what inspires me the most.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Talk to us about that poem, Infatuation.
The guy I wrote it about is he's, as far as I know, he's still alive. He was an old flame. And for years, when if you're attracted to somebody and that chemistry works, even though nothing else works except the chemistry, you have that fantasy in your mind all the time. Yeah. And that's what that's about. It's about writing out that fantasy. And then at some point I did get to meet him again, and we realized
no chemistry anymore.
So different.
Oh, it's no different. It was still there?
Well, the chemistry was still there, yes, but we were so different. Our perspective on things and who we were and how we defined ourselves, we didn't click anymore. Right. Chemistry was there, but nothing else was. So, we were on our different islands. We were way across from each other.
What about Mario Chiappetta?
That's about my husband, Jerry. Mm-hmm. And we still have that pot, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's an old dented aluminum pot. And when I wrote that poem for him, it was for our anniversary. And he was so touched by it. He took the pot and he put a nail in the wall and he nailed it up in the living room wall. And I came home and said, "What's the pot doing up on the wall?" And he goes, that's the pot from the poem. And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, it's good to stay up there for a while." Okay. He was funny. Yeah.
What do you think is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose? I guess to do the best I can with what I was given, including my blindness. For a long time, I viewed my blindness as something I pitied myself about, that I felt I was, what did I do to deserve this, And then at some point, through the benefit of people who cared about me and my counseling and my education, I realized that my blindness is part of me, just like everything else, and I need to accept it to move on and make my life better. So.
Right. Okay, we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes here. If you were stuck on an island with no one else, $500 in your pocket, a laptop, internet connection, what would you do the next 7 days?
Wait, $500, a laptop, internet connection on an island for 7 days.
Yeah. What would you do in the next 7 days?
What would I do in the next 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
Probably hope. I guess.
Okay. That's okay. That's cool. Cool. And all right, where can we find you? Where can we buy your book?
You can find me at it's www.dvorkin.com/Chiappetta, and that's spelled DVORKIN.COM/ANNCHIAPPETTA/. And if you go to that webpage, all of my booksellers are listed as links, and you can buy the ebook for $2.99. You can purchase the print-on-demand copy from Amazon and Barnes & Noble for $8, not including shipping. And if you go to that author's page, at the bottom of the page is a beautiful picture of my sweet pie, Verona, with snow on her nose, and her poem that I wrote that's also in the book. So you can read a sample of my writing.
Wow, awesome. And it was inspiring. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy for you. Good luck for your. I feel that you're really passionate about what you do. So you're really a writer. Writers are in their head. They're spiritual. They're deep. So yes. It's pretty cool. Our writers are all the same. Well, at the core, I think it's all an inside thing. It's all a feeling thing. It's all,
Yes. Upwelling. Yep.
All right. Thank you again. And thank you for this amazing interview. Enjoyed it. I love to speak to writers. Like I said, they're deep. They're all spiritual in some way, in my opinion. You gotta be spiritual in some way to be a writer. When you pick up her book, by the way, from our website at frederickby.com, Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show, helps cover production costs, no additional cost to you, no hidden fees, no nothing. So go to frederickby.com, Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com. Click on her page in the blog and click the link to her book. It is really that simple. You will see her name in the blog. Should be really easy, really easy to figure out. Also, guys, we're looking for new hosts for the Creative Magic Network. Yes, if you have an entrepreneurial, positively minded, if you are positively oriented person, we're looking for new hosts to add to the network. And people who are looking to build their brand, people who have a positive message out there, we try to win them on the positive, guys. Yes, we try to win them on the positive. So you can contact us. You could just go to frederickby.com, Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com, and just click on become a host in the header. And it's really that simple. Whether you're starting out in the podcast world or maybe you want to broaden your listenership, it's, this thing is growing. The network is growing. And, we have really low rates for now because we understand that the network is in its infancy. So if you're starting out, this might be a good opportunity for you. Go to frederickby.com and go to become a host. Also, we'd like to thank those who pledged to our Patreon page. You are really helpful to the show, and we are grateful for your help. In case you're wondering, Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to the network, to the podcast, every single month and get super cool exclusive rewards in return. I promise you will love the perks. Our Patreon page is at frederickby.com, Frederick with a C, buy like bye-bye.com, and click Patreon in the header. The money is used to cover our production costs and editing time. You can contribute for as low as $1 a month. $1 a month, guys. The Creative Magic store is live and well. We got a few cool things, t-shirts, mugs, DVDs, recommended reading. We even have Max Ivy's books in there. Leading you out in the darkness into the light, and it's not the cookie, it's the bag. Pretty cool, motivating books, man. Max Ivy, one of our hosts, the host of What's Your Excuse with Max Ivy on the network. Cool guy. If you listen to his episodes, is really into personal growth and really nice, cool guy. Also, this podcast is free every time you download it on iTunes or Stitcher. Please go over there, subscribe. It is listener supported. Tell a friend, leave a 5-star review. It really helps a brother out, guys. Really helps a brother out. Okay, hey, and Besides that, well, it's time for me to ride off into the sunset, say bye-bye. I got so many interviews this week. It's so cool, man. I have so much stuff to do this week for this endeavor, this business. And I enjoy, man. I enjoy doing these things. It's definitely the podcast has been my greatest, most fun, creative endeavor I've done so far. And it allows me to connect with you guys. And that's the best thing that's the thing that I enjoy the most, to see that reciprocity. Okay, well, to hear that feedback and to read this feedback. It's really cool. So, guys, stay safe. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, and love. Bye-bye.